Hi, everyone, and happy Wednesday. Thanks for joining us. I know there's probably a million other things that you could be doing today. For those of you who might be new, my name is Rachel Phillips. I'm one of the health coaches here at Incenta Health. I do apologize in advance. I have a very needy cat today for some reason, so you might be saying hi to him today as well. As always, I like to start us out with a little bit of an icebreaker. So feel free to take yourself off mute, put your answer in the chat, whatever's easiest for you. And this week, tell me something good. Maybe it's in your own life, maybe it's in the world, just something that makes you feel happy today. Doesn't matter how big or small. For those of you that live in the Denver area, you probably know that it's sunny today and it's been snowing the last couple days. So that's my something good. Joe says the lilacs are blooming. Yes, they are. It's right around that time for folks to start planting their gardens too. Oh, good job, Teresa, taking vacation time next week. Are you going anywhere or is it a staycation? Anybody else want to share something good?
Only that we lost our diet for Mother's Day.
I'm sorry. I think I heard that incorrectly.
No, I said that because it was Mother's Day.
Yeah.
We ate a lot of cake, dessert, everything, so we lost our diet.
Oh.
But I was beautiful.
Oh, good. I'm glad that you had a good Mother's Day. Oh, awesome. 20th birthday. I wish I could be 20 forever. Well, no, I don't. It's not as fun. Well, awesome. If anybody else has anything they'd like to add, feel free to put it in the chat. If not, I'm going to get us moving along. So this week and next week, we're going to talk about the gut-brain connection. As some of you might know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And some of our mental health, our mental well-being has been affected in the last year, obviously being, stuck at home, experiencing different types of loss of being able to see our friends, family, events, etc. So this is my fun way of touching on the mental health of folks through how we eat. So this week, we're going to go over a little bit of the science and what the research says. And then next week, we're going to talk about how to implement that into your life to hopefully see the benefits. Before I start, I will say that I am not a licensed mental health provider. So if you are experiencing some sort of crisis, please seek out the right help. If you are in the state of Colorado, there is a Colorado crisis line that you can call or text at any time. And if you need ongoing support, please seek out EAP benefits or a mental health provider through your insurance. I also am not a scientist, so everything that I'm going to share with you today, I have done my own research on. I've been researching the mental health effects of food for a really long time. It's something that I'm incredibly passionate about, but it's not something that I'm an expert by any means in. So I'm going to just give you the information that I have found. And if this is of interest for you, please let me know and we can talk about it more. And I can give you some of the resources of what I've used. A lot of it's been through Harvard and a couple different books written by a couple different doctors. So with all that said, let's get moving and grooving. If you have any questions at any time, feel free to put those in the chat. Take yourself off mute, whatever is easiest. So kind of the basics of what is this gut-brain connection. I think we have to start there before we can understand anything else. So we have our brain, we know that. And it was once thought that all of our neurotransmitters came from our brain. So for an example, you are feeling really hungry. There's a neurotransmitter that goes up to your brain and your brain goes, oh, maybe it's time to eat. And then you are hungry and then you eat, and those are all neurotransmitters. However, in the last couple of years, scientists have discovered that we have really two different locations of these neural clusters. Obviously, our brain that controls a lot of our body, but there's also this neuron central in our bellies. And the way that I like to explain that to people is if you are driving down the highway and somebody cuts you off, and you have that like, oh moment, where do you feel that? You tend to feel it in your gut more than you feel it in your head. So that's one way that we know that we have some of that going on. Same thing with like feeling butterflies, or maybe when you're really anxious, you get nauseous. It's all interconnected. So we want to start at our brain. And then we have this big long spinal cord and a couple nerves, and one of them is called the vagus nerve, which connects to our entire GI system, or somewhere around the middle of our bodies. So the gut, when we are talking about what the gut is, it's everything really from our mouth on out. It's one giant tube. There's a lot that goes on in forms of digestion. Right, we eat food, we start to digest some of the sugars with our enzymes in our mouth. We swallow it, it sits in our stomach, depending on what food it is, maybe a little bit longer, a little less long. And then it goes through our small intestine, our large intestine, and then it gets excreted as waste. So when we're talking about the gut, we're really talking about the whole thing, but primarily the research that is that's out there is focused on like the small intestine on out. Again, our digestive tract breaks down our food, absorbs the nutrients, and then eliminates waste. So breaking down the food and eliminates waste are affected greatly by what we eat. You probably know that if you go out and eat pizza, nothing but pizza for the next week, you're probably not going to feel really good. You're probably going to feel really groggy and really bloated. Your bowel movements probably aren't going to be as frequent if you're not eating any of that fiber. And it's the same with nutrient absorption. There are certain things in our food that can block that process. And the reason that we eat food is to get calories from it and to get nutrients from it, so we can do all of our body systems and they can work normally. So obviously, if we are not providing the right foods, the right things to our guts, we're not going to break down food as easily. We're not going to absorb nutrients. So we could go into a nutrient deficiency. And then waste gets eliminated in a different way. Well, same way, it just doesn't work as well. Our gut also, I find this fascinating. It's responsible for releasing 95% of our body's serotonin. Serotonin is that key hormone of stabilizing our mood, feelings of well-being, and happiness. It also, low levels of serotonin, it can be associated with depression and anxiety. One of the common pharmaceuticals used to treat depression and anxiety is a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So that basically says we try to keep the serotonin in our blood rather than recycling it. So if you don't have a whole lot of serotonin being released because we're not playing nice with our gut, again, if we're going back to that like week-long pizza binge, we're probably not absorbing our serotonin, and we're probably not excreting it. It's all about the health of what our gut is doing. Any questions thus far? Awesome. And then we're going to break it down just a little bit more. So within actually all of our systems, it was once thought that some of our internal systems were sterile, and they're actually not. We, as a human, have more cells of microbes on us and in us than we do our own human cells, which I think is fascinating. There's microbes everywhere. They're on your skin, eyelashes, in your mouth, in your digestive system, in your urinary tract. They're everywhere. And they play a very vital role in keeping us healthy and a very vital role in making us ill. So we, at least when we're talking about just the microbes in the gut, not the rest of them, there's quite a few different species of microbes that live within us. Some of them are really, really good. They help us digest things. Let's take like lactose. There's a certain enzyme that helps break down lactose, a certain little bug too, that helps us break down lactose. And if you're missing that, you might experience lactose intolerance. I would say the same thing is it's a similar thing with gluten, but the form of gluten has changed so much over the last couple decades that it's not really a microbe thing, it's a food sourcing thing. But then we have these good microbes that help us break things down and digest and absorb and keep everything healthy and running properly. But we also have microbes that are bad, like E. coli. We naturally have that within our guts. And obviously it's beneficial because we have it. And if that E. coli overgrows, we get sick, right? Like we don't want to eat E. coli. I believe that's why Chipotle had all those issues with its lettuce, because of E. coli. So these microbes, good and bad, and we can actually influence what from day to day, we can change the index of our own microbiota. We can do that through, one way to negatively influence our microbiota is through taking antibiotics, because antibiotics are not specific of like, I want only that one germ, only that one bug. It kind of wipes out everything. So we see a decrease in both the good and bad microbes, and then the bad tend to outgrow the good ones when we take antibiotics. Eating poorly, having a poor diet that's not nutrient dense, relates to this. Stress can also impact our microbiota. And our microbiota is actually inherited from primarily our mothers because of the birthing process. We get inoculated with all these microbes, which help with our immune function at a very, very young age, like on your birthday. And then obviously we get those microbes through what we eat as well. So we start to develop this microbiota at a young age from our mothers. And then we can continue to influence it. Eating a diverse array of different foods is one of the most beneficial ways to keep your microbiota profile robust. I forgot the exact numbers, but if we were to go back like 4 or 5 generations, our ancestor, like not even that far back, so 200 years, let's say, 200 years ago, most people would eat a diverse diet of like 70 different foods, let's say, in a week. Whereas now, with the invent of the grocery store and how quick and easy we can get food, we only have like 15 different food ingredients in our diets every day. So if you're just thinking like at a very basic level, we're not getting the same kind of variety of nutrients, and different types of plants and foods have different types of microbiota on them. And then things like meat have some of the microbiota that we may not want, whereas like the spinach from my garden in Denver, Colorado is probably going to have a different microbiota than the spinach grown at Irma, your house in California. So having a variety of foods grown from a lot of different places with different types of soil, all really, really good. I just threw a whole lot of information at you. Any questions thus far? Awesome. And those of you that took rudimentary biology, that's the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. One thing we all have put to memory, right? So just some of the science, and again, if you want any of these resources, I am more than willing to share them with you. A Harvard study shows us that probiotics, so eating those good microbes, putting a lot of them into our gut, which we can do through foods as well as a supplement. Probiotics can show cognitive function improvement, specifically for those who have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Another study showed that 2/3 of their participants saw improvements, like marked improvements of their anxiety symptoms. Because if you think we have like all of this inflammation and crud going on in our guts, and we change the narrative, eat a little bit better, put some of those good germies back into our guts, that serotonin is going to get released more easily, and we're going to absorb it and do with it as we need to a little bit easier. A meta-analysis also shows positive benefits for the treatment of depression, which I think is fascinating. So both anxiety and depression can have positive influence with, changing your eating a little bit and adding those probiotic supplements. Probiotics have also been shown to reduce inflammation, which could decrease pain, chronic pain, and brain fog. Brain fog is a symptom of having inflammation in your head. And brain fog is that like, oh, why did I just walk into this room type of feeling. Hopefully none of you experience that. There is also support across a couple different
Sorry, when I got up to go to the bathroom.
There's also scientific support across a couple different entities that if you are experiencing IBS, one of the most beneficial things that you could do is cognitive behavioral therapy or talk therapy. Because our mental state has such a connection with what's going on with our guts. You can improve your symptoms of IBS with therapy and working through some of those stressors. And then there is a whole field called nutritional psychiatry. That's a medical-based field of psychiatrists who use food as their treatment plan rather than more traditional Western medicine. It's food first versus medication first. And there's a ton of benefits from healthful eating. 25 to 35% of folks in the US that got an intervention of the Mediterranean diet. And I think in 6 weeks, 25 to 35% of those folks saw great symptom relief from both their depression and anxiety. I will say that none of these studies, nothing that I have looked at has shown that these are 100% effective. It's just the science is really, really promising and that we need to do more research. Again, if you are being treated for anxiety or depression, or you are starting to have that conversation with yourself that you want to be treated for those things, that you need to make a change, I would still highly recommend going to visit your doctor and making sure that you're getting support from all sides. But there is positive correlation with eating better, taking a probiotic in some sort of form, and the outcomes on our mental health. There's also a good book, I believe it's by Scott Anderson. It's called The Psychobiotic Revolution. And it outlines, and we'll talk a little bit more about that one next week, but it outlines exactly what probiotics you want, all of the science behind it. So if you're a little bit of a science nerd like I am, I would highly suggest that book. Any questions, my friends? Well, this was easy. Like I said, next week we're going to talk a little bit more of like, okay, great. Now what? We know that the science says this is helpful, but what can I actually do about it? And we'll talk about that next week of how to put these into place. And as always, if you have missed past weeks or if you would like to watch them over again, share them with your friends, family, colleagues, feel free to head over to intenttohealth.com/wellness chats. You can watch all of these videos. It takes us about 2 days to get them uploaded. Again, upcoming topics, we're going to expand a little bit more on this gut-brain connection and how to really support our mental well-being. And then the following Wednesday, as always, we're going to do a health coach Q&A. So feel free to send us those questions. I love seeing those ones. You all come up with questions that I just don't think of. So please, please, please send us those. And then as always, feel free to connect with us. We are available by phone, email, or chat Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. We have a health coach standing by to help you or talk through any questions that you might have. And then you obviously can connect with us on social media.